Hello, hello, cool people. What is going on? It is Thursday. Thursday, Thursday. Let me get all my stuff straight and then we can dive in. If you're new to this live stream, drop a message that says, "Hi, Mike. How's it going?" So this channel is all about helping people get that first role in the SOC and then to continue to get better after they land that first role and continue to climb those ranks, whether it's stay in the SOC or pivot to one of the cool teams like Hunt or malware analysis, things like that. But I am coming to you with lots of experience in all kinds of roles. So over 10 years of experience in cybersecurity at this point, doing pretty much anything you can think of that's fun anyway. So I've done malware analysis, forensics, SOC, I've run a SOC, I've done pen testing, I've done purple teaming, all the fun stuff. So if you have any questions, drop them in chat and I will be happy to answer them. So with that being said, we got a couple of things going on today. One, we're going to do a walkthrough of a box called Initial Access. So if you saw the posting on YouTube, you'll see the fun little icon. And this is a pretty fun system. So this is all about doing a Linux investigation. So we're going to pivot, look at some stuff many of you may not have seen before. So a really good one to check out and stay tuned with if you haven't. So I'm going to drop that link in here so folks can get it spun up while I'm doing some other announcements. The other thing that dropped this week that was super cool is that I dropped a long form video. It's a really long lab. I did a walkthrough, another one of TryHackMe this week. And this is legitimately, this is a really good walkthrough, a really good box. If you're even interested in malware analysis, you're doing a little bit of reverse engineering, you got network forensics thrown in there, you got some decryption of an encryption protocol in there, so much really cool stuff. I imagine many of you haven't touched any of these skills or techniques before. It is very cool if you haven't done it. The long form video isn't just one of those walkthroughs where I just go straight through the answers. I talk through it from the perspective of someone that's been in the industry and that's been doing it for a while, and my mindset when I look at problems like these in the real world. So you're getting that insider kind of knowledge and thought as I go through the box, which is good because a lot of folks, a lot of you like to check out, in the life of. Well, this is a in the mind of video. So this is how I prefer to do walkthroughs, and I prefer to give you a start to finish, some options with tools, and I give you two options for the final flag as well. But my job isn't just to give you answers here. My job is to help educate, help get you to a place where you're more comfortable with these things. You're able to pivot, you're able to adapt depending on the situation. That is what will set you apart in the real world. So let's get you there. All right, the last thing that I'm going to mention is that we will be doing another resume roast at the end of this. Thank you. This came from our Discord community. So if you're not part of that, make sure to join that. You can drop your resume in there. You can ask questions. We are more than happy to help. We've been going through some updates there. You've probably noticed some updates on YouTube as well. I am getting my life together and becoming more professional instead of ad hoc. I usually, just do stuff as I feel the urge to do it. I'm trying to be more professional for y'all. So it's fun. Okay, yeah, that's it. So with that, comment in there. If you have any questions as we go through this, make sure to comment. Let me know in chat if you're following along in here, and I will be happy to slow down and spend some more time on specific areas so that you're actually learning, right? Name of the game is learning, not to just go through and do a thing. We're here to learn. All right, time for the old coffee break. I didn't get a nap today. So sad. I like to have my naps on Thursdays so that I come in here, I have energy, and I don't fall asleep. All right, let's share my screen and start going along here. So just a recap of my setup, because I know a lot of folks are always curious about what the setup is. My setup is just I have VMware open. I have Kali Linux installed as an image on here. Both are free. You can download Kali from Kali. You can download VMware from VMware. So it's all free up to this point. And then, of course, we will be in TryHackMe. This may be a premium box. It is. So you will have to pay for a subscription to this. But I will tell you it is worth it. I know there's been some fun stuff going on LinkedIn about TryHackMe. I don't really know what the whole story is, but I still think it's one of the best places to get some experience and get your hands on stuff. Coming up soon, I will have a free course and help you set up your own lab and Purple Team setup. So stay tuned for that. I'm actually excited. The next couple of months, there's going to be some really cool stuff I'm dropping out there. And we're going to have fun. We're going to build this community. We're going to grow this channel. We're going to do some fun stuff. And I really can't wait to see those announcements. I got my first job. Thanks, Mike. I can't wait to hear that stuff. All right, so we're in here. We're going to head and start our box. Remember that for TryHackMe, if we have to interact with one of their machines, we do need to be on the VPN if we're doing it from our own system, right? You have a couple of ways you can do this. Either you can start up an attack box, which means you're using one of their VMs. It's pretty ephemeral. It's only going to last as long as you use it. Or you can utilize your own. And with your own, you just connect to the VPN, hop over to it, you're good to go. And I don't know why we're doing this. Let's see. Let's see if I can minimize this. There we go. And what we want here is, so let me kind of explain this. If you're brand new, welcome if you're just joining us. So we have in here, we're logged in. We have, it says we're connected via the box, but what we really need is this IP address here. If you've done your Sec Plus, you're pretty familiar with how IPs work, and we just want to copy this. Now, the thing I always encourage folks to do when you're doing any type of lab, whenever you're doing even a certification where you have to connect to something, do a ping. We want to make sure we can actually access our target. If we can't, we're going to run into a lot of issues, and we're going to spend so much time thinking our techniques aren't working when it's just we're not connected. But this is the pretty picture we want to see. We want to see that bytes are going, we're getting a reply. That means we have a connection. Perfect. That means we're ready to start. So let's go back over here and see what we have to do. So essentially, and I'm not going to read this verbatim, we have a breach. A company has been breached. Decepta Tech has been breached. You have a specialized honeypot development and deception technologies. At the heart of their success are called Decepta pots. So honeypots, some of you may have been following other content creators that are encouraging you to do honeypots. This is kind of a flare of that. I don't encourage you to set up a honeypot personally, but do you, boo? This is just something interesting. It does take a lot of time to do it right, so that's why I say don't do it, but whatever. In this case, this is important that we need to look at kind of the layout, and I encourage you to understand any of these problems, seek to understand what you're looking at. And what we're looking at is kind of a hybrid type environment here. We have a little bit of AWS, we have remote users, and then we have the corporate network. So this is pretty common to most companies these days, right? We got some stuff in the cloud, we got some stuff on site, and then we have remote employees everywhere, except for those that got forced to go back into office. Those are on the corporate network. Hopefully that's no one here. Yeah, so very important to kind of understand, because as we're analyzing the attack, it helps give us perspective as we're building that narrative out, right? Okay, so one ordinary morning, the entire network has collapsed. Uh-oh, right? And all the critical on-premise systems are now locked down and encrypted. Sounds like we got some ransomware here. They're hurrying to restore backups. They rush to the SIM only to find backups are corrupted. All the SIM data is wiped clean. So this is a pretty common scenario with ransomware in general. And I've actually had some interviews recently where they're asking a lot about ransomware type stuff. So this is very common. Things get wiped in, especially the smaller businesses where they don't have SIMs, they don't have a lot of security tools and all of that. Those are things that are pretty common. Now, this room is all about the first attack stage. So this is a multi-room thing. So maybe we'll continue on if they look to be something cool that I think the viewers and the members here will get a lot out of. We'll do some more. This one for sure is good though. And as part of an external DFIR team, so this is forensics, incident response type team, can you help them perform a full scope investigation and explain how the attack started? Now, this question is exactly why I picked this to do live. There's a lot to unpack here, a lot of things, a lot of insight that many of you don't have if you haven't actually done work in an industry yet. So this is a chance for you to get that insight. What does someone actually do if there is an incident? What does a member of the incident response team do? All those types of things. And yeah, hopefully you learn a few things. So let's get started. We'll go ahead and check the box here. And we'll move on to the meat of this. Oh, I thought it was already set up. We'll start the machine. And we'll wait for this thing to fill in. Let's see if there's any other important information here. Configured, replicate. So there is a WordPress blog here. It's exposed to the internet, and they want to see what it captures over the weekend. Little does she know, threat actors around the globe enjoy testing the Deceptipot 2. Can you find out how the attack started? So essentially, a website got taken over, and they took control of a Linux system. Our job is to actually follow the path of this attack from how did they get in, how do they set up persistence, and what does that look like? So legitimately a real attack here, a real attack chain, real processes that an incident responder may do. All of that will be real. And one of the things we'll make sure to do on this stream is we'll try to write the narrative. So this is something that you would have to do during an incident is you got to tell the story of what happened in the order of things that happened. And this is going to do a lot. One, it's going to help you make a case for why you should have a job, right? You got breached. You need to be able to rescue them. Why do you have a job? So your executives will know, you know what you're doing a good job. And then two, you need to figure out where your weaknesses are in your environment. So if you miss a spot, you won't be able to fix that, and someone may be able to jump right back through the same hole. Three, you really need to see the origins and make sure you get them completely out of the environment as well, right? If you miss one tiny thing, they're going to be right back in your environment, and you're going to have to start your incident response process all over. So you have to be very deliberate, and you have to follow the clues like a real police detective. All right, looks like we are good to go here. All right, so we are going to log into the host via SSH, and then we are going to start chipping away at these answers here. So we're going to say SSH, Ubuntu, and then I'm going to do a Control-Shift to actually paste the address. Yes, oops, I didn't type it wrong. Let me get rid of this little stupid thing on my screen. I don't think you can see it, but I can see it. And I think it's just secure exclamation mark, maybe. Might have typed it in wrong. Nope, it was right. Okay. Now we're in, we have access. Let's look at what we need to do first. So it says, which web page did the attacker attempt to brute force? So as we're going through each one of these questions, I want you to start practicing, and I need to get this a little bit closer. Let me push this over. All right, there we go. Just a setup here. I want you to think about, where could I find this information? What do I need to do to be able to look at that information so I can make a decision? And then also, what would this look like in the evidence I'm looking at? So three major questions there, and there's a lot more to it than it first sounds like, right? So for instance, which web page did the attacker attempt to brute force? Well, in a lot of cases, in most organizations, we may look at a WAF. That's pretty common where you'd be able to see the traffic, but there are other places as well to find that. So there are going to be specific web application logs on the local host. So we are SSH'd into the web server itself. So there should be web application logs there. Now, there are typically two types. We have typically access logs and then authentication logs, and there may be some other logs as well, but those are your two major ones typically. Authentication is who's logging in, and then access logs is what are they accessing. So not just whoever's logged in, but any user, any person, what are they accessing on the website? And guess what? That is exactly what we need to go to see which web page did the attacker attempt to brute force, because we should be able to see evidence of brute forcing somewhere in that. So let's go ahead and grab those logs. I'm actually going to pull them down once we find them and throw them into log viewer over here, because it's a little bit cleaner than looking at them in the command line. And typically we would have tools to pull logs out and look at and be able to filter and do some fun magic with them. So let's find them, and then we will look at them. All right, so the question is, where would these logs live? If anyone's familiar with Linux, you should pretty much know they live in var, right? So if we say, we'll cd in there, we'll cd/var log. And we can look in here and we can see all kinds of logs. Now, these aren't going to be only the web application logs. These are going to be all the logs for this host. Now, we don't want to look at all of these, right? During an incident, we only have so much time to do the investigation. And we're also actively, essentially fighting the bad guy, right? So we need to move faster than the bad guy so that we can actually get the system to a good space. So we probably should have already cut off access by now, but just something to think about. Now, looking through this list, there's a bunch of different options here. But one thing that should stand out to you is the Apache 2 directory. So Apache 2 is a type of web server. And this is indeed the question that we were asked, which is which web page. So we're looking for a web server, and this is very much likely that web server. So if we just ls Apache, oh, there we go. I was going to say, is there no tab complete? When we look in here, we see exactly what I was talking about. We do see access logs. We see error logs. We don't see authentication logs. We see some higher up in the hierarchy here, but we do see access logs. So let's do a tell on access logs. Actually, we may need to do a cat and then tell. Cat access logs. Oh, wrong directory. Silly me. Apache 2, there we go. All right, now we'll do tell access log. And I do tell because we don't want to look at all of them yet. We want to look at just a sample to see if this is indeed what we're looking for. And we do see some indications that this is indeed what we're looking for. We see a GET request here to a PHP file with a 404. We see some user agents here. We see another directory and file here. So we see a lot. We see some funky hex here. password. So we were seeing stuff indicative of a legitimately application that's running, right? So we do see that. So these are the logs that we want. Now we just need to pull these down, and I could pull this from my list of commands. I don't memorize a ton of commands because I'm lazy, but we can have Google AI help us figure it out. So we can say, use SCP to pull a file down, file from remote server. Yep. And so this is going to give us the syntax we're going to need for this, and we'll just build it out like I typically do. And then we'll just copy and paste it on into our terminal. So here we go. Copy right here. We'll paste this. And what we'll need is we'll need an IP address for sure. And that is right here. We'll use this. So this will be the destination address right here. And so we'll put that there. And then this is our username that we use to connect. So basically, excuse me, wow, I can't talk. Basically, this is SSH, but for file transfer. So it's a secure copy. So we're using essentially SSH to log into the system, pull a file. So pretty straightforward, and it does it securely. So it's not like FTP where you could actually see the traffic. This is all secure. So path to remote file. So this is going to be /var log. And I think it was Apache 2. We'll just look at this real quick. Yep, Apache 2 lowercase, and then we'll need access log. We'll pull this real quick. Hello, if you're just joining us, say hello in chat. What brought you here today? And we'll go ahead and remove this. And we're just going to do a /. So wherever we run this at, whatever directory we run this at, it's going to pull it down into there. But saying that, we need to go ahead and prep a directory to do this. So I'm just going to do a, let's see, make dir. Let's see, we'll do Deceptipot. Oh, we already have that. Make dir decept stream cd decept stream. So I'm just using tab complete if you're wondering, how is Mike able to do that so fast? Just like that. All right, so now we'll just copy this, and the file should pull it right into there. We'll prompt us for a password. We type it in, and it'll pull it down. So if we ls, we do have our access logs now. So all we did was pull them down to our host, and now we're going to put them into this website here. I definitely don't encourage you to do this in a real investigation. You should have your own tools. You should have a SIM that you could do this in. Just want to put that out there. Let's see. These are the ones we pulled, and they're in here. So let's make them, let's see, can I not maneuver this any? Okay. All right. All right, so I'm going to get you oriented first, then we'll look and see if we can't find some of this brute forcing. So we're looking for brute forcing is what we're looking for here. All right, so all of our access logs pretty much have the same structure. So anytime we talk about logs, we talk about a structure for logs. Linux logs will always look, not always, Linux logs will usually look pretty much like this, where you have a source, a date somewhere in there, and then the actual information. They're usually structured pretty much the same. And there's just going to, this is where all the information is. Because these are web logs, we have the source of the request. So this is the actual IP of the user interacting with the site. This is the time, so the exact time. This is going to help us with our narrative. This is the type of request. So, right, we have get, options, head, post. We see all these down here, all these different types. That's what that second piece is. This is going to be, what are they accessing, right? So is it /home/index? What is it? What are they accessing it? That's what follows the type of HTTP request. And then of course, anything that's used as a parameter will follow it as well. So this one actually has one. So right, if you're not familiar with web stuff, the question mark is saying, hey, everything after this is going to be parameters. And they're usually done by like a key value. Lots of fun words for you folks today. Some good vocabulary. Okay, and let's see what else. And some other interesting things here are the user agent. So you've probably heard the term user agent before, and this is usually indicative of what type of thing is accessing the web resource. And when I say web resource, I mean website, picture, whatever it is on the website that the item's accessing. This is going to tell you a little bit about it. Now, can it be changed? Absolutely. We can make our user agent be whatever we want it to be. But for most users, so 99.9999% of users, it's going to be the thing that is making the request. So is it your browser like Mozilla, Firefox, whatever, Chrome, whatever? Or is it your phone? Is it a specific type of Python tool? Whatever it is, it will likely be in here. Again, attackers can make it do whatever they want, but this is going to be pretty indicative of the thing accessing it. And typically, I will say this is one of the IOCs I like to key in on if I'm actually investigating a real attack, because typically the attacker will use the same user agent for all of their attacks, and it's usually unique enough for me to search logs for. So even if they're changing IP addresses, which happens quite a bit, the user agent typically stays the same. Just putting that out there. So when I look at stuff, I look at IOCs and I'm thinking, what can I search on here that is going to help me find the bad guy, find their activity? Okay, so any questions on that, drop them in chat and I'll answer them. But until then, we'll keep chugging along here. And you can see different user agents here too, right? Look at that, Macintosh. So that's what I mean. All right, so we don't really care about the IP address yet. We're looking for brute forcing activity, meaning we should see similar things repeated over and over. That would be brute forcing. And then if we look at the same IP, it should be the same IP doing all that hard work. So we can just scroll through here and look. So this would be something that I would consider brute forcing, right? A lot of get, post, all the same thing, all the same user agent, all the same IP address. So this is very much the brute forcing we're looking at. Now, when I mentioned earlier that the user agent is typically going to be the same, this is a very unique user agent, and it's Hydra. Hydra is a brute forcing tool, and it's probably installed on this Kali system itself. Like we can look right now and say Hydra. Look at that. It's installed in Kali. So you could see all kind of stuff, right? And again, they could have created a custom user agent if they wanted, but they didn't. So it is what it is. All right, so we'll just continue to look through this. I don't know why it keeps shifting on us here, but it does, whatever. So we got lots and lots and lots and lots of guesses. This is indeed brute forcing, right? All right, so let's go back and look at the question so we can answer it. And the question is, which web page did the attacker attempt to brute force? Now, something to point out here is that we actually do not see the values of the post requests. So typically, what you'll see when you access, say, like a login, right? The get will be, get this page. Let me see the login form itself. And then when we submit information to the login form, that's going to be a post more than likely. And the post is just saying, hey, I'm submitting a form, and then it's going to do whatever it's going to do on the back end, which is validate that user. So that's why we're seeing a mix of get and post here, is because that's how it works. Now, the page that we're targeting, oh, sorry, the other point I was going to drive home is we don't see the value of the post request. This log isn't going to tell you that. We would have to acquire other logs for that. We would probably see them in a WAF if we had them. So something to think about. We don't have all the tools we normally have. Sorry, I paused to see someone chatted in. Well, chat. I'll throw that on the stream. What do you mean every time you attempt to do something with Ubuntu, it's down? Is like the website itself down so you can't pull it down, or what's going on with you, Hunted? All right, so let's go ahead and copy this. And this should be our, if it'll let me, it might not let me. This should be our answer. There we go. Check. All right. First one, pretty easy, right? All right. Now comes a hard one. What is the absolute path to the backdoored PHP file? So let's get oriented before we dive into this one. This one is going to be a little bit of a wild ride. So hang in there. Coffee break first. All right. So when we're reading this, actually, let me go back to it. When we're reading this, right, again, I want you to be processing this information in your mind. What is the absolute path to the backdoor PHP file? We've got a couple of nuggets of information. We know a PHP file has been backdoored, so that kind of narrows down all the files, because there's a lot of files we haven't even looked at. We haven't looked at the files for the web server. There's going to be a ton. So this narrows it down to specific PHP files. And we know it's backdoored. So there should be some kind of malicious code somewhere. Now, there's lots of different types of backdoors, but we could probably look one up and see, let's see, PHP shell pen test. And we can get some familiarization with what does it look like? And this is indeed what it looks like. If you have a command shell on a PHP file, this is what it's going to look like. And there's tons of variations. It can get infinitely more complicated than this pretty quickly. But what we're trying to understand, and what a lot of SOC analysts fail to do, is understand the attack before they start investigating. I have seen this my entire career. Analysts just dive right in and they're just playing whack-a-mole, just running into a dark room. They have no clue what they're looking for, but they're looking for something. And what it results in is you not finding anything, or luckily finding stuff, right? You just happen to trip over something and you found something bad. The difference between a junior analyst and a more senior analyst is that you're a lot more surgical. You have an idea of what you're looking for, and it's a really theory-based, hypothesis-driven approach, kind of like Hunt's, if you've ever looked into that career. So it's hypothesis-driven, which means I know what I'm looking for, I know what the variations are, I know where to look for it, and I'm diving in. Or I'm going to answer those questions first before I dive in. So, you're doing all that prep work ahead of time instead of saying, I'm a mechanic, or I'm not a mechanic, I don't have any skills, and I need to fix this car. I'm just going to fix it without any skills. And it's going to be quite the cluster. If you took some time to understand the problem, to work on your skill sets, it's going to be a much easier challenge. But just something to think about there. Okay, so what we can do here is we can look in the logs to see if we find any indication of them utilizing a backdoor. We should see some requests to some files, and then we can start looking for the backdoor file on the system as well. So let's take a peek. What we want to do is put it in order. So when we're looking at attacks, we're looking at them in logical order, and this should be drilled in your brain. I understand what the attacker methodology is, right? So if we look at this, they're brute forcing the login page. What does that mean? They don't have access yet. So initial access is going to fall after all of this brute forcing, which means the backdoor is going to occur at some point after line 359, because this is when the brute forcing stops. Right? Everyone follow me down this rabbit hole here. So it happens sometime after here. And so now we have to look to see if anything looks suspicious. This is where it becomes very difficult and where waters get muddied and people will quickly overlook bad stuff, because a lot of times bad guys aren't as obvious as we make it seem in labs. Bad guys are bad guys for a reason, and they're successful for a reason, right? It's like, why are criminals so fast? Because all the slow ones are in jail, right? You have to be good or you won't be in the business very long. Okay, so let's look through here and see if we see anything. So we know it's a PHP file. We just don't know which one it is. So it's not this one for sure. It's not, well, it could be this one. It could be this one. So we have a lot of, it's not ASPX. You can backdoor that type of file, but it specifically said PHP file. So this is an option. We see this one quite a bit, this one quite a bit, and there's a post there. So there's actually not a ton of logs here for us. One of the other things we can really drill down into is looking at the actual attacker's IP address itself. So this is an IOC we can dig into. So we can just say filter. Oh, didn't allow me to do it. Hang on. Let's try this one more time. There we go. All right, this is going to narrow what we're looking at, maybe help us find something. I will tell you, this is not a super obvious answer here, right? So we can see some stuff here, and what we can do is look at all these files themselves if we had to, but we need to move fast. So this is it, not a ton of them. We would need to move fast if this is an active investigation, right? Lots of interesting stuff. I see this WP dash corn more than anything. And let's see what else we see. Admin, we see a theme editor. So theme editor could be used to upload a file. So that's something to think about too. They would have had a way after they logged into a web application to actually upload the backdoor and execute the backdoor. So there has to be an upload mechanism somewhere. And it's not going to be the login page, probably. So if we take that out of account, this is a really good option, theme editor, to do the upload, and something worth looking at, right? Theme editor here. Theme editor, we see them touching this theme Bloxy. So these are all really good options. All right, so we have some kind of idea here. And what we can do is, let's go ahead and jot down our notes here. Brute force, login. And then we have, we'll do, what do we have? Backdoor PHP file. We don't know what that looks like. We'll build this timeline out more once we figure things out. Okay, so let's go over here. Let's go into our SSH session. Now, for those of you who aren't familiar with the command line stuff, we can do a lot of really fun stuff in the command line. Let me just move this over so we can chat. And we can do a ton. So we can do some grepping, we can do some catting, we can do some searching, we can do all kinds of stuff. That's the power of the command line. We can do whatever we want to do. So if we say, hey, let's see if this basic command thing is in here, what would that look like? Well, that would look like something along the lines of like doing a find, or we could do a grep for a specific word, something along the lines of, we could say grep, And then we can do a tag R for recursive, which means like once we figure out where the web folders are, so first we can search for where's the home directory of the web service, then we can start looking for files. So we'll actually build two out here. So grep recursive, so once we figure out where the web root is, we'll search everything in there. And then we'll look for command. So it'll be something like, I think we have to encapsulate here like that. And it should be fine. Then we can do some additional work with it in a second. The first command we want to do is we want to do a find, and all we want to find is just any one of these files we want to search for. So the WP login would be a really good one to look at because we know that's what they were brute forcing. That should be where the web application lives. That should point us to the directory. So we can do something like /find, I think it's dash name, and then WP login.php, something like that. And then if we don't want a bunch of errors, what we probably want to do is do this dev null thing. And I'll just copy this out of here because I don't want to type it out. I'll show you the difference between these two. All right, so, and we can ask, if we want to go back in here and ask Google, we can do that as well. We can say, and this is something I encourage you to do until you build up like a list of commands. Just chat with AI to figure out how to do that. Just imagine that you can do anything you set your mind to, like your kindergarten teacher told you, right? How do I find a specific file in Ubuntu? And that's super vague. I should have said like CLI or terminal, something like that. But here we go, find home name. So this matches exactly pretty much what we have here. And so we can modify this one with our stuff, and I'll show you what it looks like without it, and then you'll be like, oh, this sucks. How do I fix that part? And then we'll fix it iteratively. That's how you do stuff. All right, so let's paste this in here. And the slash is saying we want to start from the root of the operating system, and we do that because we don't know where it's at. So we want it to just find all the things. So all this permission denied, this is what happens if you don't redirect to null. So we can fix that by just asking, how do I remove all the permission denies from the results? All right, it'll tell us exactly what we have here. And now we have the command I put together. And again, I just paused because I want to show you how you can recreate what I'm doing without me, without my brain, without my background. You can do the same stuff. So notice how much quieter it is, right? We're getting all these permission denied. And these are just, this is what you're going to get if you don't have permissions, right? We don't. We have an Ubuntu user. We're not running this as root. If we ran it as root, it would check everywhere. But we don't. Instead, we did get exactly what we're looking for, which is a directory var www html WordPress. This makes sense. So let's navigate here, and I'm gonna put this in my notes real quick. I clicked the wrong button there. We'll put it here. And we know what the directory is. So now we'll cd and we just want to look in here first before we do anything so that I can show you how many files there are in here. There's a ton of PHP files. Now, what we want to do is do a grep amongst all these files recursively to see if command appears in anything. Okay, that's next piece here. And again, we can go back over here to say, how do I search all the files in a directory recursively for a specific string? And it's going to pretty much show us the same thing. So this is dot. So this is saying from this directory forward. So we can copy this, put it over here. And we can put in our string. And the reason we chose this string, again, right, is because when we were looking for PHP backdoor, this is what we're seeing. And if we just look up this part, we could look up the whole thing particularly, but I just did this and we can adjust it as we need to. And we'll just throw that right there. All right, so let's throw this in command line, see what we get. And we may get some errors. We may not get some errors. We'll see. Hello, hello, if you're just joining us, welcome. All right, so we do have some results, and we actually only have 2 results. So this looks pretty much exactly what they put here. Let's see if I can do it side by side. Oh, it won't let me. So system, posts, system, get. So this one's a get, but this one's a post. And it's going to be the 404 PHP page. So the question is, did we see any of that? Well, we can come back over here and we can look at 404.php. And we should, oh, looks like someone else was touching it. Let's see. So we do see, here's a Bloxy file. Here's where they were doing some editing. And then we see some posts. Here we go. This is, I think this is a redirect, or not a redirect, a refer. I think if I remember correctly. So we do see some of that, but we don't see a ton of interaction. I would expect more interaction, personally, especially if we're looking for them to set up more persistence besides a backdoor. I don't think they will have completely compromised the system in 5 commands. Just saying. Unless they're really, really good, much better than me. Maybe they can teach me a few things here. So we do see this. Let's take a peek at the full file now. So let's do a cat of this file and see what it looks like. So here we go. Here's the iset command system echo. We do see this popped up quite a bit. And that's pretty much it. So essentially how these work is that the attacker would just type in the command they want to run, and it'll run on the back end of the Linux system, meaning it's basically mimicking what we're doing in the SSH terminal, except it's a little bit clunkier than that. And typically an attacker is going to move quickly from a web shell to a legitimate shell. Just so you know, and you'll know why. If you ever do any of these offensive rooms, you'll be like, yeah, he's right. Those web shells suck. All right, so we need the absolute path of this PHP file. So yep, we found it. Now we just need to know the absolute path. And let's see, we could say, we can just type it in here. So we have this, and we can put it in our notebook here. Oh, we already have it there. And then we'll just take this part. All right, so we have the full path here, and now we just need to paste it into here. And my dog may bark momentarily. All right, so that's that one. Hopefully, folks are still following along. You haven't fallen asleep. This is a pretty interesting system, at least I think so. I think it's really good one for people who want to learn how to investigate Linux systems. All right, so which file path allow the attacker to escalate to root? So we have initial access here. We got a brute force login, and then they added a backdoor. They added a theme to the host, which allowed them to get initial access to the actual operating system. So they moved from access to a web application to the back-end operating system, and now they have somehow elevated their privileges to root. So now we're looking for that privilege escalation piece. And once they get root, they have all the things. Okay, so a couple of things we want to look at when we're doing this. There's a couple of angles we can do. We can look at, well, we have bash history of different users we can look at, but if this is a web server, they don't actually have a bash history because it's not an account, and we can validate that by just looking at what's in the user home directory. So we can say ls/home, and we can see it's just Ubuntu, it's just TryHackMe. The web server isn't running as any of these accounts. They're probably running under like Apache or something like that. So if we look at cats, Etsy, password, we can see all the accounts in here. Or it could have been running as this, actually. Let's see if there's anything else in here of interest that... Excuse me. So unprofessional, yawning. I don't see Apache on here, so maybe it run as the SEPTA service. Usually there's an Apache account that things are running as. But it's web application most certainly, unless they're completely jacked up, they're not running as a normal user. Okay. All right. So looking at bash history is out of scope here because they don't have one for the account that it's probably running under. But there are other logs in here. And if we go back to old trusty var log, so cd/var log, we should find some other logs that talk about like what types of commands are running on the system. And that would be audits over here. So we do have a bunch, just depends on what it is. We have syslogs here. We have all kind of stuff. And they all have their specific things that they're good for. So just keep that in mind. And it may be worth playing around and looking at these different logs here. So like, for instance, if we did tell of auth log, we can look and see that there's different cron jobs in here. That's interesting, right? And really, if you don't know what you're looking for, you can just do tell star. Maybe it'll give us tell of all the files. And you can look in here for whatever. That may actually made a mess. But you can look through all the logs. What I'm trying to get at is you can look through all the logs and look for the information that seems applicable to your journey. This is something hunt analysts do as well, where, hey, we're looking for this technique. I don't know where it may present in our security stack. And so their initial task is, what types of logs do we have that allow this type of activity to kind of come through? and their final report may be a smattering of logs they may have never even looked at before. That's just the name of the game here. But let's go to audit, cd audit, ls. So we have one log in here, and if we do tell audit, we can see a bunch of different things in here. What we want to look at is that we can see execution here, which is interesting. So we can see stuff actually being executed. Let me see what the command is. I forgot which one is. How many lines? I want like 50 lines. There it is, in. It was in. Tell dash in, we'll do 30. And we're just looking to see if there's anything interesting in here. Okay. So we see some cron. There should be execution logs in here. That's what I'm looking for. EXEC. And I just have to have the right number of logs. Here we go. Syscall, user login, lots here. I still don't see the ones I'm looking for. Let's see if we can do, we'll do cats, or we'll do grep. What type of command do we want? exe. So this will give us a bunch of stuff. And we're looking through the types. We could probably cut and see what type of types are in here. Cron, syscall. And I know these are very, very difficult to read. What we can do is also clean it up a bit as well. exe here. So grep, let's do exec. Why is it so crappy? These logs look horrible. And what we're looking for here is, so here's SOCAT, so that's an interesting one. I'm just cat the entire file real quick because this is being a little bizarre. Cat audit. And I think it just got goofed up. CWD. So we are seeing stuff here in here. So user cat var WordPress. Here we go. So this is what we're looking for here. Type equals this. So this is going to actually hold the commands that we want to look for. So let's copy that. That's what we're looking for. And we can just grab. Oops. Every time. All right. And I added extra letter there. All right, there we go. All right, so this is what we're looking for here. Sorry, a little bit of a wild ride, but this is them actually executing stuff in the command line, which is important, right? We're talking about how do they get persistence. So in order to navigate on an operating system, they're probably running a bunch of commands maneuvering around. So we see ID, we see print working directory, we see uname. These are all pretty classic signatures of an attack. And what we have here is this is A0 is the first thing. And then every A after that are arguments to it. So this would be sh-c-pwd. This would be uname-a. So this is how you read these types of commands. Now what we're looking for in here is what is that, backdoor? What allowed them to escalate to root? That's what we're looking at. So we see SOCAT here setting up another command shell. This isn't privilege escalation, right? It asks us privilege escalation. So we don't think they have privilege escalation yet. We keep looking. I don't know what this is exactly. We see bash, we see groups. This is enumeration. So this is one of the things that you should be seeing yourself do as you learn more, is you look at these and figure out what are they doing? What is the attacker doing at this point, and how does it progress their game? How does it help them progress their attack? That's what you should be looking at. And sometimes, right, if you've already done your SOC 1 analyst course and you're looking to continue to add to it, hop over and do an offensive course, and it's going to change your life, I promise. You can hold me to that. It's going to help you look through the eyes of an attacker, I promise. So they're looking for files that they can change, that they're allowed to modify. They're looking for cron jobs that are running. Typically, they're looking for things that are running that they have the ability to modify. And it's a way to do privilege escalation. So they're continuing to look, which means they haven't found anything yet. Now, they did run this. So here we see them looking for environments. We see them looking for specific SSH files. That's what I see here. They're doing find. I want to find SSH files that have that I can see. And so we saw them look for ID_RSA. Then we see them look for this one. And then we see them cat it. Right, a very specific one, because they did a star here. This one is a .back. That means they found one and they put it in there. That's interesting. And then we see them copy this to temp. So this, if you don't know, if you haven't heard of SSH, right, or you haven't set up SSH, if you have the private key and you download it, then you can SSH to wherever you want. So this is a really interesting thing. So let's do something really quick. Let's just take this part. We're going to throw it into AI, and it's going to help explain this to you, because I want you to be able to, again, replicate what I'm doing. What is happening here? And you have to be able to figure out how to get this information quicker. Luckily, you have all this cool stuff. So it's going to tell you, hey, they're doing discovery. They cat and read it. They're moving it to the directory, which is what we talked about. They're fixing permissions on it. And then they attempt to log in as root. So now they're utilizing it to log in as root. That's interesting. So this answers exactly what we were talking about, which is how did they escalate privileges to root? They did it because they found an old SSH key that they had the ability to read. They then made a copy of it so they could execute it, and they elevated their permissions. So we now know exactly what the answer is to our other question. What is the file path? So if we look at these logs, we can say the path is this. Unless they want us to do it in temp. I don't know. We'll see. No, this looks right. And we'll just update our notes here. Found SSH key with read access. Made a copy and elevated permissions with, and then that was right here. SSH. And this is probably what they would consider an LOL, living off the land bin. And we can ask. And we can ask it and see. Explain step 5. So this is what the command looks like. So this says, this is a stealth convenience flag. Normally SSH asks, do you want to connect? So that's what that does. Then it tells SSH to use the temporary key. And that's it. That's really all this does. So you could take this off, but there's this whole thing with interactive shells. So they probably wouldn't have been able to say yes the way they had a connection, whatever. And then they just use the tool. That's it. So that's pretty interesting. I don't know if anyone here watching has seen that before, but it's a pretty nifty trick. Alrighty. So next one is, which IP was port scanned after the privilege escalation? Now we need to think about here is they did privilege escalation. They have logged in as root. Can we see their commands anywhere else? The answer is absolutely we can. Now we have access to bash history because that is actual user with a directory. So let's navigate, and we're going to have to do sudo here, sudo ls, and it's going to be root. We're probably not going to be able to see it without tac la. There we go. And in here, we can see a bunch of things. We have MySQL history, but what we're super excited about is the bash history at the top. So we can say sudo cats roots dot bash. Won't let me autocomplete. Sad face. All right, basically this is everything that the user did. We can see in here, so we should be able to get an understanding of what they did. Let's see. Here we go. Nano readme keys. So we don't really know where it started. Maybe here. Maybe they set up an SSH key as a backdoor themselves. Maybe. See, killing Deceptipod. This is getting an IP. But this looks like a loop. This is netcat as well, which is pretty interesting. We also see an SCP, so something we actually did to pull down a file. So this is probably pretty interesting. This is most certainly, from this point forward, is the attacker. This may be as well, this may be as well, but for sure this. And our question is, which IP was port scanned after privilege escalation? And that will be this guy. They did a handful of ports. And for those of you who don't know, who haven't really done this before, if you don't want to be super loud in an environment, you're going to do a more minimal port scan, right? Most people are used to doing nmap and doing like an all port scan. Yeah, that works in a lab environment, but if you're like say doing a red team true adversarial, you're only going to do one or two. You're going to space out the timing. You're going to do a lot more work to minimize the noise, and that's what they did here, just in case you're curious. So we have our next answer. All right, what is the MD5 hash of the malware persistent on the host? So this is the hard part. So the malware persisting on the host. So they have a backdoor in the web server. They have a SOCAT connection. And they are root. But now they're saying they have malware that is persisting on the host. And I think we saw some of that in here as well. Hello, folks. If you're just joining us, feel free to say hello in chat. All right, so we did all this. Let's focus here. So I believe this is where they started doing bad guy stuff. So they look like they pull a file down, they unzipped it, they CD to it, they ls, and they ran it. But this doesn't really tell us exactly what happened. And then they removed everything in the directory. Oh, let me go ahead and mute. The dog is going berserk. 1 second. Oh, he was well behaved. He only barked once. All right, so We don't know what actually happened. So this is where the fun part occurs, is we got to dig in and figure that out. And then they cleaned up their trail behind them. So not only do we not know what happened, but they removed all of that. Removed their whole trail, so we don't know what they did. So this is where the fun part comes in. This is why I thought this was going to be a really good one to demo, is because you actually have to have some creativity to find the answer on this host. All right, so one of the things we can do is that we can start looking to see if there are, we know what the attacker's origin IP is. We can search our logs to see if that pops up anywhere else, like other types of connections, if there's anything making an outbound connection to it. And this is pretty common too, right? A lot of times they won't change, or a lot of times they do. A lot of times they use similar infrastructure for every host that's compromised. So these are definitely really good IOCs for you to check, and you should be checking whether or not it is the case, because it's quick. 5 seconds. Is it in here? If it is, we're good, and we can run that down. We at least know one bad guy. If it isn't, we gotta keep digging and try to figure something out. So for us, let's do a search. So we know over here, we have a grep command where we can search anything recursively for something, right? In this case, we are going to search for something else, and it's going to be the attacker's IP. Where's the attacker's IP? Well, we have it right here. This is the attacker, not that one. This is the attacker's IP, this one right here. So this is the one that was brute forcing stuff. This is our attacker's IP. So we're going to replace this with this, and then we're going to add that there because we want to redirect it, because we don't want to see all the noise. This will create a lot of noise. And so let's do a search now. Let's do a cd / and we'll just paste this in here. So we're just basically looking, is there a log or any document anywhere that's reaching out to our known bad guy? That's what we're doing here. So we'll let that run, and it could take a minute, it could take a couple of minutes, and we'll see what's going on here. So it should come back with something. We'll see, but yeah, IOCs are definitely a big thing if you haven't heard of that term. So indicators of compromise. So things like IP, file hashes, file names, usernames, things like that are pretty common in our cybersecurity world, and it is definitely what we use to do all kind of stuff, right? If we're tracking a particular threat group, IOCs, right, are attributed to them. If we are talking about a specific type of attack or a specific type of incident, IOCs. So it's a pretty big, pretty common world, or pretty common word, pretty common thing. So let's look through here, starting at the top. So these are all the logins we have already seen, right? We already did all this research earlier. Try not to make you seasick. So, okay, so these are all the web logs. We don't care about the web logs. We've already done that. So let's get out of web logs. So you just got to get past all of this. And these right here, right after, these aren't web logs. Look at this. So web logs are here. We looked at these earlier. These are sys logs. So these are system logs. Look at this. So Deceptibot demo, we have something called kworker, and then we have it's connecting to the malicious IP address, and we see it over and over and over. That's pretty indicative of a backdoor if you've never seen one. Repeated attempts to go out. That is a backdoor. So what we are probably going to, I'm just scanning through the rest to see if there's anything else, and then we see that SOCAT one there. So what we can do is terminate that. We could let it run. I don't know how long it would take to finish searching, some time. But we do have kworker here. K-worker is definitely of interest. So what we can do is the same thing, but with K-worker and see what happens. Where does it come up at? What is it? Because just looking at these, most people don't know what is this. Is it a service? Is it a program? Is it a file? What is K-worker? And we'll just do a search, see if we can't find it. So we should see all these logs we're seeing on the screen right now. They should pop up, but we should also see K-worker under other context as well. We should see it pop up in other places besides syslog and syslog1. So here we go, started K-worker server. So this right here, this first log, this is interesting, right? So this didn't have our malicious IP in it, which is here, because, well, there's no IP in it. But that same name is up here as a service. So we know it is indeed a service. That's interesting. So it's a backdoor, it's persistence. Yeah, service makes sense in this case. A service does exactly those things. So let's take a look at this service. So we can, again, ask Google, how do I look into a service? How do I find information about a service? How do I get information about a service in Ubuntu? So systemctl. So we'll do this, and then we'll just type in K-worker, see if it works. Look at all this, lots of stuff here. Go ahead and terminate. Status K-worker, we may have to do .service. We sure don't. All right, there we go. So we see, and why we want to look up a service, because a service is more than just the name. There has to be something behind it, like some sort of binary, right? Some kind of program. And that's what I'm determined to find at this point, right? Where is the program? The program is more than likely malicious, and we have to get that hash anyways. The question is, what is the hash of the file that is being used for persistence? I think something like that, right? Hash of the malware persisting on the host. So we're getting close, right? We know a service is reaching out, but we don't know what file the service is running. We should see that now. Look at this. So loaded etc systemd system worker dot system K-worker dot service. Interesting. And then right here we see user sbin K-worker. So this is where the actual binary lives. So this is the file that's running. This is the file doing all of these connections. And of course, during a real investigation, we would pull it down, do some malware analysis on it, run it in a lab. There's a lot of stuff we could do with it. In this case, we know it's bad because we know this is the thing running, and now guess what? We just have to hash it. So we'll queue it, then we'll say MD5. I think it's MD5, or is it SHA? MD5, okay. MD5 sum user sbin K-worker. And now we have our hash. How about that? All right, and then we just drop it over here. All right, now the next thing is the question of, can you access the Deceptipot in recovery mode? So first of all, we got to figure out what this Deceptipot business is, and then we need to figure out how it works to see if we can get it going in recovery mode. I don't know. So let's do another grep to see if we can't find Deceptipot. My upper lip's itching. Okay. And we probably want to do it by name. There's probably a name somewhere. So let's do that. Gosh, so unprofessional. I think iname does it. I think that's case insensitive. And then we'll do this. Oops. Do this here. Okay. So let's see if we can find this. We should see something pop up, and we do. So we see user bin Deceptipot. Interesting. And we probably also want star here, because there may be other additional files with it. And we do see some. How about that? sbin Deceptipots. There should be one more file in here, and I don't know why we don't see it. Ah, I know. So we do need to do this with sudo so we can actually find everything. So let's do this. There we go. So Deceptipot lives as root. We actually do have root on the system, by the way. So with root, we should be able to see everything. Without root, we were missing this config file. So we do need to see what's in the config file. So let's do a cat of that. Sudo cat. All right, so what we're looking in here for is to figure out how to use this tool, because I've never used it before, right? I'm sure no one else here has utilized it either. So we're looking for something related to a recovery key. So recovery mode, recovery key, something to that effect. And if we find it, we'll be good. So here's a password. That's not what we're looking for. Elastic password. That's not what we're looking for. Deployment, recovery key. So this is what we're looking for here. So we'll copy this. We'll put it over here for a second. And now we did find the file here before. So let's run this. So this is the actual binary. Yep, just double checking. So this is the actual binary. And so we want to do something like -h. Usually -h gives us something. And we only have a few options. Daemonize, I don't know, -r string recovery key. Okay, great. That's exactly what we're looking for. -r, and then we want to paste this in. Probably have to put it in quotes. Run that, and hopefully it works. Maybe. And there we go. That is our final flag. Perfect. So we'll throw this in here, and then we'll have a talk real quick. Okay, so basically what we have here is, and I want to pull up the shell so we can look at all this other stuff. Don't need this. Okay, so we have the brute force login, they get into the web application, then they uploaded a file, which means they must have either elevated their permissions on the web app or were able to brute force an admin's permissions. So they put that in there, and then they utilize that to get access to the underlying operating system to start doing stuff. When they were in there playing around, they were able to find an unsecured SSH key, so bad permissions there, admin, and then they utilized that in SSH to be able to log in with root. So with that key, they were able to say, I'm now root. Then after that, they pulled down a file with SCP. Then they installed a service, Kworker, and this was their backdoor. So this service, the great things about service from an offensive perspective is even when the system reboots, which is the key, right? As an attacker, you want to be able to survive reboot. And with a service, you do just that. When it resets, boom, you get your connection back. Maybe all your other shells die, but you get your connection back. their back door is still there in the web application. So even if you remove this K-worker backdoor and you forgot to remove the web backdoor, they're getting right back in, and vice versa. If you just like, oh, they got into my web application, you didn't do any more investigation, they're coming right. They're still in there. You never got rid of them, and they could add a backdoor in the web application again. So this is what I mean by you have to do the full investigation in order to kick the bad guys out, or you're going to be in trouble. You're going to be playing cat and mouse over and over and over and over, and it's going to look like a cartoon. So not that great. So hopefully everyone learned a little something tonight. And if you're watching this as a replay, feel free to ask some questions in the Discord community. Happy to answer those for you. All right. So guess what? It is now time for a resume review. Let's do it. Alrighty, so this is someone from our Discord community, brand new member this week. Welcome, Angela. And she asked if someone could look at it, and I obviously asked permission to put it on the stream because I wanted to make sure I had her permission. And yeah, we're going to review this, give her some feedback, hopefully help her nail down a job. I can't wait to see that. Thanks, Mike. I got a job message. We're going to go through this systematically. We get about 30 minutes, so lots and lots of time to look at stuff here, and we're going to help out. So one of the things I also want to point out is I am putting together kind of a starter pack of sorts to help people get that profile, get their LinkedIn set up, get their resume straight, all those things that you need to do to be ready and get your brand straight so you can get a job. Branding is huge. It's not just for content, folks. Branding is all about how people find you, what people think about you whenever they come across you on the internet. So it's basically a big billboard that's just screaming, hey, I'm cool, hire me, I'm going to be a good member of your team. So that's your brand. Okay. So all that should be coming out in the next couple of weeks. Keep an eye out for it. I won't be probably doing a lot of work on it next week. I got a pen test I got to do and work. So yeah, but it should be coming out next couple of weeks. All that will be dropped, and I will also be dropping a new free course on YouTube for getting you ready for that first SOC role. All right. Enough of that, right? Enough of that. Let's read this. So the first thing that catches my eye is that she has a table here. It looks like right here. If this is a table, one of the things you really do not want to be doing is adding any funky formatting to the back. The reason why is that it screws up resume parsers, which is not good. Anything that gets gunked up on the back end when software reads it or when AI reads it is not in your favor. So any absolute formatting changes or any formatting whatsoever, so multiple columns, tables, anything like that, get rid of it. You want a single column. You don't want any formatting. It's causing chaos. And I know it helps you organize. I know it makes things look better, but we're really playing for two audiences, well, three audiences when we're building resumes. One, when we submit it, it's got to be read the way you intend it to be read by the machines. If it doesn't make its way to the machines, it's not going to get to a human. When the human reads it, this is where it needs to look good enough that it's not going to be ugly to a human. And typically, any formatting stuff like this is fine. Really, what is going to catch the eye of a human that's bad is stuff like misspellings, bad grammar, just really bad inconsistencies in your resume. Things like that will stand out to a human. So don't worry about making your resume like pretty or, just a lot of people like adding all of these fun fonts. Don't do it. Like hers is basic here. Hers is okay in terms of formatting. Maybe add a little bit more spacing between some of these job titles. But besides that, the formatting isn't that bad. Plain is okay. That's what that my point here is. Plain is okay for you folks. Plain is okay. Don't just because it doesn't look amazing to you, right? Doesn't mean it's bad. Make your profile look good, right? A human's going to look at your profile, make that look good. But your resume needs to be kind of in the middle, both for machines and humans, okay? All right, so this is something I would change. You know, it'd be great if people sent these in like a doc like version, and then I could improve them on the fly and then send it out to people. That's probably a good idea. What do y'all think about that? Okay, so let's read the profile here. Motivated SOC analyst candidate with a bachelor's degree in information security and have the following: CompTIA Security Plus, Pentest Plus, Network Plus, and hands-on experience through internships and TryHackMe SOC Level 1 and 2 training. Knowledgeable in SIM, log analysis, network traffic inspection, vulnerability enumeration, alert triage, and incident response workflows via internships and virtual labs. Eager to monitor alerts, investigate anomalies, and reduce false positives, and support 24/7 operations in fast-paced SOC role. Okay, so let's talk about a few things here. So one thing I do like is that she is kind of pointing to where she got the experience from. So that's a good thing. That's a positive. Hey, I got this experience through labs, or I got this experience through an internship. Great. The other thing she has here is that she's putting like her best marketable things up top here, like her certifications. She has a ton. She's got Sec Plus, Pentest Plus, Network Plus, and then she also has TryHackMe Level 1 and Level 2. So looks great on paper. This looks great to me. Now, does this knock me off my socks? No. I think that last sentence isn't that great, right? So one thing to keep in mind whenever you do summaries. So if we do a summary, this is your elevator pitch to someone else. You really got to spend time and nail this elevator pitch. Otherwise, they may not read the rest of your resume. So I would take more time to make this sound really good. The other thing that you need to pay attention to with these profiles or summaries or whatever you title them is that they need to be specific to the job you're applying for. So I'm going to take this as a general resume, but if you were to put this in at a specific job, you need to be putting some of that similar language, like literally lifting that language from the job listing and putting it in here if you have it, okay? If you don't put it in here, you're lying. They're going to figure it out real quick. But if you do have that, put it in here, because that's probably what they're looking for quickly is, do they have these things? That's probably what the ATS system and AI is looking for, is specific keywords. So don't be shy about putting them in here all over the place if you have them. Again, that is the key. Do you have them? I've seen some resumes last year and earlier this year where they just loaded it up. And then I started asking them about their resume where they're like, oh, I have all this sim experience. And they're like, no, actually, I've never touched it, but my recruiter told me to put it in here. And I'm like, sheesh, come on, people. But anyways, yeah, spend some time here. And I encourage everyone to spend extra time with your profile, with your summary. Make it sound good. Make it sound like an elevator. Pitch it to people you don't know. Does this sound impressive? Does this sound like me? And it's a chance for you to be a little fun, to show a little bit of your character, a little bit of who you are to the person reading this. So do some work there. Your first sentence is pretty good. Your second sentence is pretty good, I would say. That last sentence, do some work there. I don't think that really helps you, because what you're trying to convey is, what do you bring to the team? You're eager to do this stuff, so are you bringing eagerness, or are you actually bringing skills, right? So you're trying to convey that you can do the work. That's what you're trying to convey here. All right, technical skills. So we already talked about you want to take it out of the box. things to look at here. So this is where you can do a lot of keyword stuffing, is in these skills sections. And again, it needs to be relevant. Um, you don't like, some of this stuff isn't particularly useful, really. I would, again, orient your skills to whatever the job listing is looking for. You might see NIST in there. You're probably not going to see CVE or CWE management. You're probably not going to see CVSS scoring. Like, no one cares about that. um, if they have specific NIST versions, put it in there. But be careful. If you aren't super familiar with these things and you get asked questions, you're going to be deer in the headlights, and they are definitely going to figure out you really don't know these really well. So be careful what you put in here. Now, let's see. I would also put some hard skills in here if you have them. So you have things like threat detection, alert triage, incident response, false positive reduction. A lot of these are just words you're putting in here. They're not actually major things that people would look for, I would say. And then some of it isn't formatted well. So looking at this here, it looks like some stuff is bolded, some isn't, and it may just be the view here. I'm zooming in a little bit more. Oh, yeah, I'm pretty sure the top stuff is a different font or bolded versus the other one. But either way, yeah, I mean, I would really orient this to the job listing specifically. Make this stuff make sense with the job listing. So if they say something about web attacks, put OWASP top 10, but use their language. I cannot stress enough how important it is to use the job listings language in here. Don't assume that they're making the connection between the term in the words or the ask in the job listing. They're not doing that. What they're doing is looking for that thing in your job listing if it's being done by an ATS system or AI, okay? If it's being read by a recruiter, maybe. Maybe if they know enough about the subject matter, but don't ever count on it. They're not subject matter experts, they're people finders. So, it may make sense once it gets to the hiring manager, but it has so many levels to go through before the resume gets in their hand. So don't automatically filter yourself out by assuming people know what you're talking about here. Okay. That is my warning to everyone. Do not assume they know what you're talking about. I did it early in my career and I catch myself still doing it. Don't assume they know what you're talking about. Be very, very specific. So let's pull up like SOC analyst. Let's see, junior SOC analyst role. Here we go. And what I want to point out here is one more thing I want to talk about before we look at this role. You have a lot of stuff in here. So if you're looking for a SOC role, you have a lot of stuff in here that is not applicable to a SOC analyst. Like, I don't care if you know NIST as a SOC analyst. I don't care. If you're GRC, good, throw it in there. I don't care if you do vulnerability remediation. That's not your job. I don't care that you know how to do firewall configurations. That's not your job. Bash scripting, okay. PowerShell, okay. CVSS scoring, not applicable. So the other thing you need to do is frame this for the actual job you're looking for, which is in line with edit it for the job listing itself, right? I think just about every resume I've looked at on this stream, people are keyword stuffing stuff that's not applicable to the job they're applying for. These are not a ton of SOC stuff. They're not. I should be seeing a lot of Elastic stuff. Like, I should be seeing SIMs. I should be seeing EDRs. I should be seeing types of logs, maybe. Things that are specific to an analyst. Velociraptor, EDRs, whatever. That's what I should be seeing here. not stuff related to GRC, not stuff related to vulnerability management, not stuff related to system administration, network administration, any of that. I don't care as a hiring manager in the SOC. I am hiring you to be able to investigate stuff, not to be able to fix stuff, to investigate stuff. So just keep that in mind. All right, let's look at a job real quick, so we can take this into account, right? Like take this job and then refocus and look at the resume. So this is the things, right? Proficiency with Microsoft Sentinel, Palo Alto, Prisma Cloud. So they're looking for these probably in the resume. Experience with SIEMs, firewalls, EDRs, cloud security tools. These are things you want to put in there. And again, every job's going to be different. Every job's going to be different. So knowledge of threat intelligence, adversary techniques. Nowhere in here is there vulnerability management. Zero. Nowhere in here is NIST. So for this job, all that junk has to be removed. They do have Python. They do have PowerShell, Bash. So this is what I mean, right? You're just wasting space and taking space away from things that are going to help give you a higher stature in their eyes if you're flooding it with stuff that doesn't matter. And it's also taking away, right? It's distracting away from things that matter to the actual hiring manager. So just wanted to point that out. Let's look at one more really quick. Let's see, view, show full job description. I want to see the full one. So we're going in here. This is telling you what it is, but we're looking for the important section that says what we're looking for. So here we go. Ability to investigate and evaluate network traffic. I think you had something to that effect. If you didn't have Wireshark, you should definitely be putting Wireshark in there. 2 years intrusion detection analytics. So IDS systems, I would put it exactly the way it says. If you haven't done, you should have Splunk. If you've done SOC Analyst 1 and 2, you should have also done Snort. That should go in there. So these are things you should be talking about, right? You should be talking about, I can do PCAP analysis. I can look at web server logs. Again, shifting the focus to things that matter to them, right? If it's like you're buying a new phone, right? And if the marketing firm is talking about things that you don't care about, like look at how fast it is, look at this next generation CPU, this thing is super fast, look at the graphics on this thing, look at this accounting software that you can load up on here. If you don't care about any of that stuff, it's not winning you over. But if you're saying, hey, look at this new phone, look at how good the pictures are that you can take, look at how you can install apps super easy, how you can connect with your family really easy, look at FaceTime, you can hop on video chat, right? They're marketing the traits to the people that they want to attract. And you need to do the same thing. You're marketing yourself. So you need to market your skills that they care about and get rid of the noise, okay? This is that branding thing again, right? Remember we were talking about branding a second ago? You need to market yourself because that's what you're doing. You're just marketing yourself and your skills here. So with that being said, and this is a problem that I see a lot with folks coming out of Login Pacific, is that you're doing all these labs that no one cares about in a SOC. I would focus on labs that people actually care about, like the STIG stuff, vulnerability management. Replace it with a lab that actually matters. And you're listing this as experience. Don't do that. Don't list because it's not a real internship. Don't list it in the experience section. You're going to probably raise some eyebrows and be like, this isn't really experience with other people. That's how I feel looking at it as a hiring manager. So don't do that. But it should go under your lab section. I would definitely put it there and talk about the labs you're doing. Security operations. This one does count. Threat hunting with EDR, name your EDR. I would put an EDR in there. Detecting IOCs from brute force attacks, data exfiltration ransomware. Okay, Design, tested, published advanced threat hunting scenarios. I would talk about how. How did you do this? What did you utilize to publish that? Were you doing that in the SIM or the EDR? This is also a good case where if you have a profile, providing a link somewhere in your resume for that, and you may have that in there, providing a profile link to it where you can share your hunt queries, interesting stuff. That is a topic I'll be covering again soon. I'll have a template for folks to use and actually turn these lab-focused resumes or portfolios into something that's really going to attract folks and show off the skills you're learning. A lot of them that I've seen just look like you copied and pasted a bunch of stuff, which isn't that attractive. So we'll flip that on its head and make it better. Custom detection rules, that's something you can put in your profile as well. Microsoft Defender for endpoint, so you name the tool, great. Reduce brute force incidents by 50% by implementing inbound NSG firewall rules. So I don't really like this bullet because it doesn't really make sense because this is a lab environment. So you didn't really reduce brute force incidents per se. But you could talk about the type of rule that you did. Yeah, I think that's all I'll say about that one. Create a Microsoft Sentinel dashboard. So Microsoft Sentinel, another good tool you got your hands on. The monitor login failures and malicious traffic using threat intelligence. So this would be something else you could put in your portfolio, like talk about your logic you use for dashboards and how you built them. Works. Experience with KQL, similar to SQL. I would say that you don't have to put this similar to SQL and SPL. KQL is pretty well known now, and which was used to query logs within SIM and EDR platform. Okay, just shows a little bit that you've done some querying. I would say I would beef that one up a little bit more because it's kind of like, which I get because it's your last bullet too. And I say beef it up and show off your query skills because that is by far the hardest thing to teach analysts is how to query, how to utilize these tools. So if you can show off that you can do this really well, you're going to be a much better candidate than most people. Most people are really bad. And so the query is one piece of it, but also understanding what you're looking for in logs. So having a good understanding of logs is the other piece of that puzzle. So do you know what to look for in these logs, what logs to go for and to look for? And then two, do you know how to craft a query that's going to find those things in those logs? So two pieces. If you can demonstrate those well in here, you're doing really well. All right, so the next piece is job history. So your first actual experience is you worked at IT support, which is fine. If you have any things related to security that you can put in here, definitely do that. I know it's pretty tough, but do it if you can. So we got analyze, resolve, system network issues, not particularly applicable. Implemented basic security measures, including secure configurations, access controls, network segmentation. Maybe. Monitor network connectivity, identify device communication inconsistencies, documented technical issues in ticketing style. Not necessarily applicable. You could orient that one to be more applicable and talk more towards doing network focused analysis in the SOC. My throat's getting dry here. Last bullet here, communicated technical findings and remediation recommendations to non-technical clients. That's a soft skill. So it could be something you'd want to put in there. I'm not mad at that. Last thing here is, so I would take this whole section out, put it into a training section. I feel, and I think this is the fourth or fifth resume I've seen from Login Pacific. It's not a real internship. It is a lab, and I don't want you to piss off a hiring manager by misrepresenting what it is. I know he's telling you guys it's an internship. It's not really a real work experience. It is a lab environment. So be very careful. I mean, if you still feel like it should be in here and you can make a good case, go for it. But I think it's a very slippery slope, and I think it's a very, very tough argument to make that this is job experience. Okay. So be very careful there. The other thing I would have done, and the reason why you may not have done it is because you might not have had enough space. No, you had enough space, but the spacing here, it's not consistent. Make your spacing consistent. So you just need a line break here, looks like. And this is a smart move here as well, where you didn't put anything for valet attendant. Smart move. If the role's not applicable, don't put anything in there, just list it. You don't want to have gaps in your resume, but you also don't want to waste space for something that's not applicable. I do this actually for my military service on my resume. I left it blank. I just put my years, none of it's applicable, right? I just got shot at, all right? There's nothing applicable about it to what I do today. So I leave it off. Projects, we almost missed this part. So SOC level 2 pathway, good, conducted hunt investigations, blah, 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 blah. I would say TryHackMe, SOC level 2 and SOC level 1 to me means way more than your login specific work that you've done here. I can tell you, you probably learned a lot more that's applicable to a SOC in those courses, more than likely. And just really because it's more directly applicable. Let's see what else you have in here. And you're doing a lot calling out what you've done, which is perfect. Again, lean into what the different job listings are asking for. And it's going to help you make this more applicable to the roles you're applying for. Thanks for joining. If you're just joining us, if you're not part of the community, join. It's on Discord. You can find it in the description of maybe this one, but definitely most of the videos. This is one of our community members who sent me her resume to review. So we're just looking at it, trying to provide some very valuable input to help her climb that list of resumes that get submitted at different companies. So hello. Say hello in chat if you're just joining us. Yeah, so SOC level 1, SOC level 2 are very, very good, and I'm sure you learned a ton, a ton in there if you actually, did it intentionally, right? There's a difference between doing something and doing something intentionally. If you do it intentionally, you're learning a lot more, and it's a lot more usable skills. Like you've played with the ideas, you've gotten creative with it, so it's a lot better for you. Let me zoom in a little bit more here. Yeah, so this is all good stuff. These TryHackMe ones, and then vulnerability scanning and enumeration. I don't know if this is part of this or not. I can't really tell. I would change the way you do these headings. If it's not part of SOC level 1, name the... I guess you would just add spacing. So maybe you're saying that this is a skill set that you gained. So maybe redoing how you're listing your training so it's obvious. Yeah, I'm trying to think how I would have you organize this so it makes more sense for the reader, because you have very specific pathways you completed, then you have specific subject areas that you worked. And I would list in here maybe the labs that you did for these so that it's more obvious. Because typically when you state something in a resume, you want to have some sort of evidence that supports that claim, because otherwise people can just claim whatever they want and it's not necessarily true. So you want to have evidence. So maybe list the rooms after it, perhaps. Yeah, maybe list the rooms after it. I'm trying to think. This would be something I'll play with when I do the resume template for folks. I'll play with the idea of how do we want to convey this in a way that makes sense. So I'll keep this as a reference to make sure whatever we do takes a similar circumstance into account as well. But these are good stuff. Vulnerability scanning and enumeration. So just the in-map scanning, I think, is useful for folks understanding what port scanning is in general. I don't really care about the vulnerability scanning piece, but it's good to know that it exists. Excuse me. I know you did that in login specific as well. It's good to know what vulnerabilities are, because sometimes you'll have, say, a new exploit, an O-day that's dropped, and you need to figure out how exposed you are as an organization. Understanding that, understanding where to go, and how to look for systems that have that issue. That is a good skill. You won't be doing the vulnerability scanning yourself, but understanding where to get that data and how to search the data, that's the important thing. Web application security testing, that's a good one to understand. So this is that offensive stuff I was talking about this show. It's good to understand the offensive stuff because it makes you a much, much better defender. Let's see, exploitation and defense lab. These are two opposing ideas, I think. Leverage Metasploit to isolate in isolated environments to simulate exploitation techniques. Apply defensive monitoring and logging strategies to detect and respond to simulated threats. So I think this is a really weak section, this last one. You could do a lot more, maybe even put offensive security together in one area. So like maybe pen testing, like have a pen testing category where you're saying, hey, I know how to do nmap scans. Hey, I know how to use Meterpreter. Hey, I know how to use Burp Suite. Here are the other types of attacks I've done. I've done web application attacks. I've executed exploits. I've done shells. Like talk through the techniques that you've done. That would probably be more beneficial than what you're doing in this last bullet. And it may help you kind of bring those home together a little bit better, I think. Let's see what else we have here. We got a couple minutes left. Drop some comments if you have some last minute questions, and we'll see if we can get to them. We have a BS in cybersecurity assurance from Western Governors, relevant coursework. Then we have all her certifications, ITIL, LPI, Linux Essentials. Oh, we got Linux one, cool. Security operations training, TryHackMe, level 1, level 2. This isn't bad. I would honestly move. Well, I guess you already did it up here. I was going to say, for folks who are brand new to cybersecurity, it is typically better to put all the stuff that is applicable to the job up at the top. So maybe the order would be profile, technical skills, certifications, education, then experience. And that's simply because you don't have a ton of experience. Most of it isn't even relevant. So it's kind of, I say it's like the newspapers, right? They put the most important things up first. You don't want to bury the lead, to use their phrasing. You want to keep the lead at the top. And that would probably help out. So I guess in summary, I would make this last sentence a lot stronger. And if you could even take another look, spend an hour reworking your profile. This is your elevator pitch. Think of it like that. And then read it to several people and see what they think about it. If you have a teacher, ask your teacher, ask your professor, what do you think about this? I would modify your technical skills for each job that you're applying for. You can do that pretty easily with AI. I would move your login Pacific, put it into training because it's misleading. It's not real work experience. It's not a true internship. It's just lab time. Put it into training. IT support, that's fine. And also these labs, I would remove like this vulnerability management one. That's not applicable to the SOC. Security operations is, I would fine tune it again for these specific jobs. So tune it to the job you're looking at. Look at your spacing. So be careful with your spacing. Make sure all the spacing is consistent. And I almost forgot, get rid of this table. You don't want a table in here. You want a single column. Make sure your spacing looks good. Otherwise, it may get chewed up by ATS systems. And other than that, maybe consider putting this into like a single pen testing skills and then listing the types of TryHackMe challenges you've done, maybe the pathways, maybe do a junior pen tester one. Knock that out, put that in here as well. These are all going to help you. I think the TryHackMe SOC Level 1, SOC Level 2 pathways are much more powerful than your login specific experience that you've listed. So definitely would put those up at the top. Other than that, you'll be in really good shape. If you get all that stuff straight, you'll be in really, really good shape. So if you get this thing improved, Angela, feel free to reach out, show me what you're looking at. And if you have a sample job that you want to show me and say, hey, I'm designing this resume for this specific job, and I just want to make sure I'm doing what you're advising. Does this line up with what you're suggesting? That is what I would recommend you do, and I'd be happy to help you out. So best of luck, Angela. Feel free, if you have a resume, you want me to look at it, join the community, drop it in the community, or email it to me, and I will bring it up on one of these live streams for you. So happy hunting and jobs. Keep an eye out for all that stuff that's coming in the next 2 weeks from InfoSec Wizard. So a starter pack for getting a job, and then free course on becoming an awesome, amazing, impactful, immediately impactful when you get on a team analyst course coming on YouTube. Keep an eye out for that. So until next week, it is 9 o'clock, time for me to sign off and spend some time with my significant other. We'll see you next week here on the InfoSec Wizard live stream. See you, everyone.